The US and China are holding serious nuclear talks. Communist propaganda is coming to a country near you, and China purges 2 former defense ministers. Then more on this week's China News headlines. Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. This episode is sponsored by Chuck Norris, the man who creates tornadoes just by punching the wind. Need I say more? Yes? Okay, I'll tell you at the end. Heavy rains have caused severe flooding and landslides in southern China, leaving Hey, Shelley, is this the right script? This isn't from last month? Again, oh, okay, I see. Once again, severe weather is tearing through China, causing deadly flooding and landslides. One missing family of 6 was found dead by rescuers after a landslide in eastern China. They had entered a temple seeking higher ground to escape the floods, only for the building to be toppled by a landslide. The Chinese government is giving cities over $316 million in emergency relief as rescue and evacuation efforts are underway, with even more severe weather incoming. Fortunately, China's economy is doing great, and its infrastructure is known for its quality, so this is no cause for alarm at all. And speaking of China's amazing economy, China's foreign direct investment fell for the 12th straight month in a row. According to official data released by the Chinese Ministry of Commerce, China attracted a mere $56.81 billion in FDI from January to May, a 28.2% decrease compared to the same period last year. And since this is official communist data, we know the situation is actually much, much worse. Continuing decline comes amidst trade tensions with the West, with the EU and China set to hold talks on the EU's planned electric vehicle tariffs, and China launching a tit-for-tat anti-dumping investigation into European pork imports. China's been trying everything it can to think of a way to attract foreign direct investment to the country after the pandemic, short of actually creating an environment that welcomes businesses. But for some reason, it isn't working. Go figure. Well, nothing that a little propaganda won't fix. Cities and provinces in China are working together with the CCP to push their propaganda globally. In other news, the sun rose in the east and my beard remains glorious as ever. An independent research group called the China Media Project has documented at least 23 foreign propaganda centers at China's city and provincial levels. These are centers devoted to telling the best and most convincing lies to foreigners. Gary Ronsley, a professor of public diplomacy at the University of Lincoln, said this is proof Beijing is realizing that it can't use the same propaganda on all foreigners. When we look at the activities of some of these centers, they are very much oriented towards the needs and interests of people in neighboring countries. For example, some centers focus on soccer when tailoring propaganda to Brazil or Argentina, while culinary shows are tailored towards Italy and Southeast Asia. What, is their Canadian propaganda going to focus on hockey pucks covered in maple syrup? Of course, so far these propaganda centers have met with limited success in terms of changing people's perceptions of China. Still, CCP propaganda has had some successes. For example, China managed to convince France to work with them on a satellite, which they launched last Saturday in an attempt to explore the universe. Engineers from both countries worked together to develop the Space Variable Objects Monitor, which will seek out gamma ray bursts, the light from which has traveled billions of light years to reach Earth. Wait, China's looking for gamma rays? Oh no, is their latest weapon going to be a Red Hulk? This partnership is despite Washington's 2011 ban on collaboration between NASA and Beijing, which was also supposed to dissuade US allies from working too closely in space with the CCP. I guess France just didn't want to surrender. 2 former defense ministers have been purged. Lei Fenghe and Li Shangfu have been expelled for, you guessed it, corruption. According to state-run Xinhua, the offenses were extremely serious, the impact was extremely egregious, and the damage was particularly immense. We've known this was coming for a while now. Li Shangfu went missing in late August and was officially fired 2 months later. Now he's officially been kicked out of the party. This came just days after Xi Jinping held a high-level military conference where he complained about graft and a lack of loyalty in the military. Well, I'm sure everyone will be really very loyal now, Mr. Xi. And after the break, diplomacy and more diplomacy. Welcome back. The US and the CCP have held their first informal nuclear talks in half a decade. What do informal nuclear talks look like, you ask? Why, like this, of course, as opposed to formal nuclear talks. Reuters reports the talks occurred back in March. These types of informal talks are known as Track 2 talks. They involve former government officials or academics who can mostly speak with authority on their government's position, even if not directly involved in setting it. Track 1 talks are government to government. The US and China had some of those in November, but they've since stalled, with one top US official publicly expressing frustration at China's responsiveness. China, let me give you some advice. It takes two to work on a relationship. You've got to talk through your feelings. American delegates present at the recent Track 2 talks said that Chinese representatives said they would not resort to atomic threats over Taiwan. Gee, I wonder why that sounds familiar. You are who you hang out with, China. David Santoro, a scholar and organizer of these Track 2 talks, said the Chinese told the U.S. side that they were absolutely convinced that they are able to prevail in a conventional fight over Taiwan without using nuclear weapons, which isn't very reassuring. Meanwhile, commemorating half a century of diplomatic ties, it looks like Malaysia and China are getting even closer. The Malaysian Prime Minister called China a true friend last Tuesday and said the country wasn't to be feared as Premier Li Qiang ended a visit, marking one of the very few times in this show's history that I've said true and China in the same sentence. The two countries signed a series of deals such as a renewal of a 5-year trade and economic cooperation pact. But China and Malaysia did discuss some issues with the relationship, mainly overlapping claims in the South China Sea. What else is new? But the Malaysian leader stressed the discussions were held as equal partners and trusted friends. Because who hasn't had a trusted friend randomly decide to invade and claim your swimming pool as their own? Oh, that's just Greg. He's so silly. But that doesn't mean everything is rosy for Beijing in the region, especially with India and Bangladesh boosting their defense ties, which seems to be a way to counterbalance China. Last Saturday, India and Bangladesh signed agreements to expand cooperation in maritime security cooperation, ocean economy, and space and telecommunications sectors, as India presents itself as a regional power and counterweight to China. Gee, I wonder why they put so much emphasis on maritime security. How random. But Bangladesh also has close relations with the CCP. It's heavily dependent on Beijing for raw materials. Bangladesh has tried hard to balance these close relationships over the years, as well as its good relations with the US. International politics is a messy love triangle. And Taiwan's defense ministry reported that between June 20th and June 22nd, just 2 days, China sent 66 warplanes into Taiwan airspace. You can tell how seriously China takes trying to cut down its carbon emissions by the amount of jet fuel it burns, which would even make Taylor Swift go, "That's just downright irresponsible." According to the Taiwanese Ministry of Defense, some of the aircraft flew within 31 nautical miles of the island. These maneuvers and violations coincide with the CCP enacting death penalty laws for those it labels supporters of Taiwanese separatism, which is a totally reasonable and not at all unfathomably unhinged reaction to people calling a country a country. We did an episode on that, link below. But China has been doing this for a very long time, and it's only gotten worse since Taiwan's new president came into power, which means they'll probably be reporting on more such violations in the very near future. And hey, have you ever wondered what the legendary Chuck Norris is up to these days? Well, at age 84, he can still kick butt, even while standing with both feet on the ground. Chuck Norris can beat the sun in a staring contest. Chuck Norris can charge a cell phone just by rubbing it against his beard. Seriously, how is Chuck Norris still so awesome in his 80s? He did this by making one change: drinking morning kick. Just slam it into your glass, stir it around, boom, morning kick. Want something tasty and tangy? Morning kick. Want more energy throughout the day? Morning kick. To learn more, check out mymorningkick.com/uncensored. The link is below. And in my ongoing effort to talk about things too controversial for YouTube by hiding them in gaming content, click here to check out the latest episode of my new show, Deep Thoughts While Gaming. This one is about the new Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.